It's in the name.
Think your team has what it takes to survive the ultimate dodgeball showdown? Join us Saturday, August 15th at Mars Hill Bible School in Florence, Alabama for the Staying Alive Dodgeball Tournament, benefiting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Grab your friends, build your team, and compete for a great cause while helping kids and families fighting childhood cancer. Whether you're in it to win it or just for the laughs, this is one event you don't want to miss. Team spots are filling fast, so register today at benandtravis.com. That's benandtravis.com, where you can stay alive, dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about men's health as we continue Men's Health Month. Of course, mental health, period, is something we like to tackle here and do it with the intent to help. The intent to heal, and certainly with a little humor mixed in. We certainly don't want to let it get too stuffy. I don't know what that means, Ben, but right out the gate, it's today as we record, it is two legends that we know of, their birthdays, right?
I believe so.
Waylon Jennings, right? And Ernest P. Worrell.
Jim Varney.
Jim Varney's birthday. So,
yeah.
Obviously,
two legends in different directions.
Yes, obviously they have passed on. But we have some of their legendary work. That is all pro counselor Ben Hayes with Highland Park Church of Christ, Mars Hill Bible School. I think you've got a men's health event coming up this weekend. Yes. Florence Boulevard. In Florence, Alabama. If you're a dude in the area, Ben Hayes and the warrior poet himself, Lonnie Jones, are going to be there. Is that a one-day event, Saturday?
Yeah, it's just Saturday, at least for me. I think it's just a Saturday event for them. And Lonnie is speaking a couple of lessons, and I'm doing a couple of lessons. And I think it'll be a good time. Always a good time when you're with Lonnie. Lonnie is worth the trip alone. So you don't have to worry about my part as much. Come here, Lonnie. He'll do a great job. I'd love to get to see everybody too, but it'll be a fun time. Also going to be in Decatur Wednesday night. So tomorrow night, if you're listening to this, I'm speaking in Decatur with the Decatur Church, hanging out a little bit with my good friend Reed Swindle. So he may not be there. He'll probably be like, I'm going somewhere else tonight, but that's where I'm going to be at tomorrow.
And then of course, all next week, we will be in the most wonderful place. I think you've even done a blog before, the most wonderful time of the year, with Christian Camp, Hamilton, Alabama, which I have attended. I missed a few years as a counselor, but for the most part, attended since I was 15, and I think you a little before that.
Yeah, I think I was 15 that year that we went, but I had gone 2 years before that 1 year. So I think I went like when I was 13, and then maybe we came back when we were 15 or something like that. And then I don't think I've missed since then. I think I've been able to go at least a part of a week every week.
So it's not lost on me that is the week of men's mental health. I know that camp, for a lot of people, it would be not beneficial to their mental health, but it's certainly something that I notice when I didn't go. There would be a time in the year where I'm like, oh, I didn't go to Maywood, and I can tell it. Yeah. So for me anyways, and I'm sure you would attest, Mr. Director, that it is, hopefully it will remain for you a good mental health week. But your lovely wife, Kenya, and I are sports directors for the week of Maywood. And it's a lot more laid back than when you and I were. Now, not for the staff, especially when it comes to volleyball, they're pretty serious about it when it comes to that. But we do kickball and volleyball. We used to do softball. And after several children and teenage boys put their life on the line,
faces rocked off,
kind of bounced in the era of liability. I think we have made the switch to kickball, which I'm of the age now that's just as dangerous as softball. So
Well, that's true. And I hope, I think being a director this year is my first year to be a co-director. I am not directing this week by myself, and I'm very thankful for the Brethricks, for the long line of their family. Kind of, it's passed down from generation to generation. And Jason does a great job. He's going to do a great job. I'm just going to kind of be by his side and try to help out how I can. And he told me, he's like, in no way does this mean you can't have fun at camp anymore. Like, I want you to still have fun at camp. So I'm going to still have fun at camp. I'm going to try to, at least. And it's been fun since we were there. But, now it obviously takes on a very different role as we get older. Now we're trying to make sure the kids have fun. But we still have a lot of fun if we, are honest about it. And I'm with you. I think that is one of those things that is very essential to keeping my mental health in a good place, your mental health in a good place. And maybe it's bigger than camp, but that 1 week is very, I think you always put it, when you've missed it those couple of times, like it was a shot in your arm, it was a booster shot every year that like you just needed that time with everybody kind of boosting you up to get you ready for at that point you were teaching in school. And I get that because now that's me. I'm at school every day. And so I feel the need to kind of have some of that. But I think on a bigger scale, when we really think about why does it help us, or what is it that helps us with mental health, our mental health, I really think one of the most important things that we can do as men is having men to be surrounded by that are good people and good influences. Men gravitate towards groups of people or towards other guys. I think for years, you've always seen on Westerns or on things that take place in England or Scotland or Ireland or up north or wherever, bars or places like that have always been this place where guys gravitate to one another. And I'm not advocating for that necessarily. But it speaks to the fact that has always been a need for men to bounce ideas off each other, to talk to each other, to share their woes with each other. And that's probably not the safest and best place to do it because generally there's inebriation, involved, and that doesn't help with it in any way. But there is a need to have those people. And I think I have very much been blessed by surrounding myself with what I generally will refer to them as the mighty men. David had his mighty men that were surrounding him. And I think that's such an important piece. And you're one of those, and in several different groups, several different ways. But there's several other guys that are very much a part of that.
Yeah, it's funny because I get, I get a new video game, a baseball or football game, and guess who are my created players out the gate? And so I don't know what that speaks to, that I haven't grown up yet or whatever, but when I can't necessarily be with you in person, there's always text, there's email, there's online social media. But then even then, like, hey, I'll go play a baseball game, and Blake and Will and all you guys are on the team. And, whatever that may say, that might get too deep for this episode. But Ben, why do you think, in your experience as an all-pro counselor, why do you think that it's a struggle for men to share openly about what's in their mind? I can speak for myself that, especially being married and having kids and in a transition, there's a part of me that I don't want to worry them. I don't want to burden them with what's going on in my brain, especially if I haven't had time to think it through myself, just to be open.
I think that there's several factors that probably come into this. And, I'm sure you can Google it and find a bazillion other factors. I think that there has always been the stigma that men are supposed to be strong. Men are not supposed to show weakness. Where that came from, why that is even a thing, I don't know, but it is that masculinity. And so I think what happens with a lot of people is that, we even grew up hearing things like, don't rub it when you get hit, by a pitch in baseball, or, walk it off, or, be a man, suck it up, whatever. And I think that just sort of stays with us. And so when bad things start happening, or we start feeling the world crumbling around us, all we can hear are those voices that go, suck it up, deal with it. It's okay. Be a man, all that kind of stuff. And then yet when we look back at the scriptures, we see stuff like Jesus wept, and why did he tell us that? I don't think we have to get real, into some doctrinal conversation about why he said Jesus wept. Why Jesus wept. Was it because of this or that? I don't care. Jesus wept, and there's a
emotional availability.
Right. And when he went to the garden, he was praying with such intensity that sweat like blood was rolling down. So, you've got these times where Jesus is very human, is very weak in a moment, and he doesn't care to show it. He doesn't care to say, I thirst. He doesn't care to say, in this moment, I feel like God has forsaken me, quoting Psalm 22. So you've got these moments where in the Bible, there are men who very much, David's Psalms are very much sharing his heart and being vulnerable. But somewhere along the line, the deceiver has deceived. And he's told us, we can't share it. You don't need to share your struggles. You don't need to be vulnerable. You've got to suck it up. You're supposed to be the strong one in the relationship. And I feel that. I feel it every day. I don't know if you do, but there's times when I just don't share what's on my heart because I feel like I don't want to burden somebody else with it. I'm supposed to be the one that throws it on my back and takes care of it. And I've not experienced the trauma that a lot of men who've gone overseas and fought for our country have experienced. What a lot of guys who are, I cannot fathom being a really any kind of health worker, but especially like a front lines guy, firefighter, police officer, EMT. I don't imagine. I can't imagine that world. That I'm just not able. That's not my thing. And so, but a lot of them have experienced it, and then they have this mindset that says, well, we can't talk about it. And some of it maybe I'm afraid I won't get hired. I'm afraid that they're going to do something with me if I share that I'm struggling with suicidal thoughts or whatever, that these things are going to happen that not necessarily are true, but what people think are going to happen.
I think the guilt, you think about people in military service, things that, you have a change of heart later on in life. Like, there's all kinds of factors that go into it, but those are some great points. I know that my concern is once I get it out there, I won't be able to get it reined back in and put in place because I've spent so much of my life trying to get those butterflies flying in the same direction. And so there's a fear there that, things won't go back to being the same. Now, I will say post leukemia, I have a tendency to overshare. And I don't know, maybe as a counselor, you're like, hey, really, if it's in the right vein, there is no oversharing. But yeah, I feel some of that weight that you were talking about, to let it kind of be out there. And as a preacher, right? Like there are some people, one of my critiques is that sometimes people critique like, hey man, you just kind of bury yourself up there. But I'm also like, I don't want to be the guy that everybody thinks has it all together, because that is a burden that is unbearable. Instead, we're all working towards the Lord and being molded in his image together as a team. So kind of finding that balance, maybe we struggle to do that or are fearful that we won't. So that leads to what does it look like? What does a healthy man mental health look like?
Well, that may be different based on every person in some ways, but kind of to circle back to something you said there at the end about ministers is, I grew up in the era where they kind of told us don't share stuff, don't share your weaknesses as a minister, because all these people, they're not going to listen to you, or they're not going to, they're you don't want to perceive that there's these problems because you're serving the Lord, and serve the Lord. We don't want people to think there's problems. I don't know why they told us that. Honestly, I'm kind of making up why I think they told us that, but I've not found that to be the case. I've found that the more open that you can be, now, I'm not saying you get up there and tell every little deep, dark secret of your life. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody probably needs to do that. But I think there's some transparency that's needed. I
think if you're preaching the whole counsel of God, it's sometimes, you think of different preachers, Church of Christ, we get the rap, you're going to preach baptism till it's blue in the face. And, hey, if that's you, do you. But, if you're preaching the whole counsel of God, there's going to be times and appropriate times to go, hey, this is something that I have not mastered yet,
Yeah. And I mean, how many people in the Bible were perfect?
Can only remember one.
I only know of one. Now we can make arguments that, Enoch walked with God but that doesn't mean he was perfect.
Yeah.
The only perfect man I know of is Jesus, and they crucified him, as they say. So, there's all of these things where, there's nothing that says none of my heroes are perfect. And I know that. And when I read the Bible, I know that. When I look at these men that I've talked about are being my mighty men, the men that are, next to me, that are supporting me and helping me, none of them are perfect. And so I think one of the first things, the question was what is healthy?
What does that look like? What does a healthy mental health look like?
Well, I think part of that is just that, understanding there is no perfection. And I think so many people strive for perfection, strive to have everything exactly right, that you can never be happy. You can never be content. And I think there is a really fine line of pushing yourself to be better and understanding that contentment is okay.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially as athletes. You got somebody that's an athlete, or, at this point, I'm trying to get back in shape. I'm trying to do some stuff. It helps my mental health. That's another thing, physically active helps your mental health. But I watch these other people in the gym, and I realize what they can do. And I'm like, I'm not that age anymore. And so I scale back things, and I go,
way to go, buddy. Way to go.
I'd rather be able to continue to do something than to mess myself up and not be able to do anything. So it's like, I'm trying to be kind of gentle with it, but there's a reality to, I'm never going to be what those guys are, or some of them, those girls are, or what they're doing. And I'm never going to be able to do that again, or at least not on that level. And so recognizing and realizing that my expectations need to be kind of, level to what my abilities are.
Yeah. I'm lapping the Travis Creasy that would rather be sitting on the couch. If I'm out here running and exercising, I may not be moving fast. And at the end, I may not like that number, but I'm not sitting on the couch eating a bag full, or whatever. And so same thing mental health wise, like we oftentimes have to crawl before we walk, and certainly before we run. And there's a lot, just like the Christian life, there's a lot of back and forth. You feel like you move 2, you drop back 1, with the ultimate understanding, once again, the perfect one died so that there's grace and mercy there. And so, there's a lot of health found in mercy and grace for oneself.
Some of you guys, some people listening might know who I'm talking about. There's a guy named Kyle Buchanan. He used to work out with us at the gym. He's not there as much anymore because he has taken over Huntsville Hospital. He's kind of one of the administrators of Huntsville Hospital. So he's having to travel. But we were running one day. He's, I think, maybe a year younger than me. And, he said something along the lines of like, we're the 90th percentile. We're the 90th percentile in the 90th percentile. And I didn't know what he was talking about, and he's like, There's very few people our age that are still doing this kind of stuff, still pushing themselves to do something and to, work out and to be here this early. And he's like, this is what we're doing is great. So keep it up. He was trying to encourage me with that as I was trying to die running beside him because he's in tip top shape. So I think, what does it look like? It looks like accepting imperfection is one thing. I do think surrounding yourself with some good people. I feel like the people that I find that are really struggling with mental health, isolation becomes something that they do. We can talk about Elijah going up and separating himself from people and leaving his servant and walking another day's journey. And, we see those examples of when people are alone, they're struggling more. And so good men's mental health, I think, is surrounding yourself with people who will challenge you to keep moving. I don't ever want to go on a hike or something like that all by myself. I need people beside me to push me. And I think we need that. So, understanding kind of what our capabilities are, staying active, having people around us, all of those things I think they're both a sign of good mental health, but they're also the way to good mental health, if that makes sense. And probably it's more the first, it's the way to good mental health. And, and what that will result in is a positive self-attitude, a positive view of self, seeing purpose. I think that's a big thing for guys. And a lot of times, like guys who get out of the military or, guys who have lost their jobs, there's so much identity wrapped up in those things. And so when a relationship collapses or a business fails or they get out of something that they've been a part of for 20 years, then they start struggling. How many men have we known of that have retired and they've really fallen apart, because that was, there's so much, and people are like, oh, it's going to be great when I retire. It's really not sometimes, because now everything I've wrapped my identity in over the last 40 years of my life, I'm not doing it anymore. So what's my purpose? So I think really for those who are retiring and those who are stepping out of military or whatever, really think about, maybe get counseling for what am I going to do beyond that? Because I need something to keep that purpose.
So in that, and I think that's great, even if we think of, our church group or work or whatever it is that we're a part of that's healthy, when we know that people are doing and stepping into those roles in life. If you're at church and you know of a gentleman who is retiring, step up your efforts to reach out to that person. I think you and I both have probably talked about at funerals before, the grief over a loss of a loved one doesn't end today. When all of this is over, check in on these people. Well, certainly that's good, but that's also other aspects of life and transitions. And, I've been asked since moving down here, hey, how's it going? Well, church is good. No. How is everything? How are you? What's life outside of these walls look like? And so appreciate that. But when those things come up and we hear people going into those, maybe that's a nice mental thing to go, I need to check on them this week or 2 weeks or whenever, and kind of reach out. So let's see what else we got here. How can we better support one another? I think I may have talked to that a little bit. Maybe you have something else to add on that as well.
Well, I would add to what you just said about that being a cue. And I think I've talked a lot about, probably in the past on here, about transitions, and transitions are always difficult. It's not, when I'm in elementary school when I was in elementary school for 6 years or whatever, 5 years, I was pretty stable by the end of that. I was used to the routine. Well, the moment you were moving up into the middle school, that transition was where it was scary and difficult. And then when you get into high school and all of a sudden I'm having to move up into the high school. And then especially I really struggled my first year at Freed Hardeman Probably because you weren't there. I mean, let's just be honest.
Wow.
Travis
Yeah.
wasn't
It
there.
definitely does.
But those first 6 months, I wanted to move home. Like I didn't want to. I was like, this ain't for me. It was weird. I felt weird all the time. It was that transition. But this, by the second semester, felt great. Loved it. Enjoyed every moment of it afterwards. Then getting out of college, there's a transition, and it's like the when you're in those places, you're at your stable points. And Lonnie and I would do ropes courses. He had like a tree with a cable over to another tree. Nobody fell off at the trees. Those are the stable points. People fell off when they were trying to cross the cable, and so you try to extend that that tree as far as you can. Well, the tree's not going anywhere, but you can get people holding on to the tree. And when you got this person holding on to the tree and extending it out a little bit further, and then another person on that other side extending out, then that gap shortens a lot. And so I think one of the things that's very helpful, again, is just surrounding yourself with stable people. And in those moments of transition, in those moments of I'm going from working to retirement, or I'm going from being married to going through divorce, or I'm going from having kids at home to having no kids in the home. And now that as a couple, we're kind of by ourselves and we haven't known what that's like. Those transitions are when you need people supporting you. They're also just times that you need to, in your own mind, go, hey, I'm going to struggle during these times. This is reality is I'm going to struggle.
And I think that we can project, going back to the, preachers have it all together thing. Just my example, like when I'm doing my thing, when I'm up there preaching, that is the norm. That's the thing that I brought with me from Tennessee.
Yeah.
So if you look, and that's why I appreciate people going, well, I mean, outside of when you're in the zone of things that you're doing, and the weird thing about that, Ben, is that most people in the crowd, the last thing they want to do is doing what we're doing. Being up in front of people speaking. So it's hard for people to kind of connect with that, oh, that's when you're okay. That's when I would be a nervous wreck. No, that's what I came here to do. And that's kind of the norm. Yeah. And then being at home with your family, those are the normal things, but it's times in between, to your point, that you can kind of get into your thoughts, and maybe the temptation is to bottle those up. And I know probably a couple of years ago, it stuck with me, thinking about thoughts that run through our brain, and they may not be of the Lord. They may not be good thoughts. Might not be any good thing about them at all. But when we have those, we have the temptation to go, whoa, where did that come from? And push it out.
Yeah.
And I think scripture even points, confess your sins one to another. And that's when God becomes even more effective, that it's actually powerful when, and so even maybe in our own minds, dealing with those thoughts, where do they come from? What's the source of that? Why is that in there? Actually deflates its power. And then even when it gets to the point where I share with a group of people, and then in that group, somebody goes, oh yeah, I know exactly where it come from. I've felt that too. There's an effectiveness to that
can't tell you how many people have been like, come in my office and they start telling me things like, I know you're going to think I'm awful, but these are the thoughts that I've had. And I'm like, I've had like 10 other people tell me those kinds of thoughts, or, whatever. And they're, they look at me like, I thought I was the only one. And so I think that's where the mental health
lie straight from Satan himself.
Yeah, exactly. We quote that song, lie number 1, you're supposed to have it all together. And if you if they ask you how you're doing, you say, I'm never better, or I've never been better. Lie number 2, there's something about keep your all your stuff stuffed behind closed doors. Don't tell anybody about what you're going through. And so I think those are the lies that men especially have believed. Like, I cannot share this with anybody. They're all going to think I'm weird, and or they're going to think I'm terrible, or they're going to think I'm complaining. And women just do that better, generally speaking. They talk about their feelings. How many times I've had couples come in and like, he won't talk about anything. He won't tell me anything. I'm like, that's what we do. That's our set. That's our factory setting. And so we have to overcome that. And I really try to encourage men to do that. But our factory setting is, it's good. I got it. I'm not going to share that. And that just builds within us. And so whether it is your spouse, but sometimes it needs to be other men, because other men can go, yeah, I get that. And I've been so thankful, I have you, Josh, Blake, Will, SWAT guys, Lonnie, Daryl Pickle. There's different men in my life that have just kind of always been right there, no matter what, for us I don't have to be that. Now we're going to pick at each other. It is the most unsafe place to be when you're on a boat with all these guys, because they will absolutely make you feel humble.
Humility is not a problem. Yeah.
But it's all done in good fun, not to really make people feel bad. And in the moment where I said, hey guys, I'm really struggling, everybody in that group that I just named would go, hey, let's pray about it. Let's talk about it. Let's find you a way to feel better. But I still struggle sometimes to go to it in those dark moments, those moments when I really need it.
Yeah.
There's times when it's like, yeah, I don't want to bother them with that. So we have to really be careful not to hide ourselves down in a hole.
Big news from Heritage Christian University. Colin Ray is coming to the 2026 Heritage event. Join us Saturday, August 22nd at the beautiful Renaissance Shoals Conference Center for an unforgettable evening with one of country music's most recognizable voices. Sing along to classic hits like Love Me and That's My Story from the 10-time Male Vocalist of the Year nominee with 16 #1 hits. General admission tickets are just $75 and table sponsorships are available now. Don't miss this incredible night supporting Heritage Christian University. Get your tickets today at hcu.edu. That's hcu.edu. All right, Ben, the Heritage event with Colin Ray. Question
and
of
Travis
the day.
Creasy, by the way, because you're going to be announcing Colin Ray, as you've gotten to announce some pretty cool people. Anyway, go ahead.
We want people to come to this, so we keep the headliner the headliner.
Well, the good thing is it's just your voice and not your face. You have a face for radio.
Yeah. But the question of the day is, since it is a birthday of Waylon Jennings and Jim Varney, you can do whichever one you want to do first, but Jim Varney memory, Waylon Jennings song that comes to mind, and I'll let you have first dibs on that question unless you need a minute to think.
Oh man, there's so many good songs that Waylon has. I'm afraid I'm gonna not say my favorite, but how can the two of us not talk about the Dukes of Hazzard theme song?
Yeah.
That was our childhood. That was our that's at the core of who we are. It's in our kids' books, basically. Although change of colors and all that kind of stuff. But so I'd probably have to do that. I think there's just and maybe beyond the song is just his voice narrating.
Yeah. They keep a show in my hands and not my face on TV. My mama can't understand.
Can't understand it. But I mean, I just loved his narration, the Duke boys are in trouble now,
Yeah.
And it'd go to commercial and you'd have to wait till it came back.
If they redid that show, or if you ever need a narrator in that vein, Jacob Hennigan, why not?
Oh, 100%.
Why not Jacob Hennigan?
Jacob would be the guy. So certainly love those. I'm sure there's other songs I could talk about, but I'll leave that one. And then with Jim Varney, just his ability to make faces that were so crazy. And he was theatrically trained. He's
classic. Yeah.
Classical theater, incredible actor, but he chose laughter. And I mean, how many kids have been blessed by his craziness? Those, that his when he would do stuff like that, and he could just make his face do all sorts of stuff. He could do all sorts of masks and different stuff. So like maybe front runner to Jim Carrey almost. But anyway, good stuff.
Yeah, Waylon. Funny enough, I've in the last few years, probably last decade, he has really climbed the ladder for me. And I know more of his music than really before. There's a great James Hetfield, the lead singer from Metallica, does a cover of one of his tunes. The line, he spent most of his life with the band looking at the backside of me. That's a great line. As far as Jim Varney, there's a great, and it's on YouTube, where he plays all the characters. And it's sort of I don't know if it's actually the Alamo, but it's kind of this fort that's being attacked by Native Americans.
Yes.
He plays all the parts.
Yeah.
And
I think I've seen that.
It's pretty amazing, and it's entertaining, and you can tell in that a lot that he is trained the way that he is. But just talented people. One day maybe I'll know what it's like to be talented. But a lot of good times with those two gentlemen.
Oh man, our childhood, man.
Yeah.
Our childhood.
It's funny because you mentioned Lonnie earlier, and Lonnie with the Skits with the Truth, he comes in and he has influences for sure, but there's a lot of stuff that he and Michael Rosenblum just come off with, like, in their minds. And that's impressive to me, where you and I, we kind of, it may be old enough that these kids have never touched base with it or understand it, but most of ours are influences like Jim Varney, the Three Stooges, Bugs Bunny,
Chris Farley, Jim Carrey, and even Lonnie thinks he'll sometimes be like, "Oh, y'all, that's funny. Where did that?" He thinks what came off our head.
Us.
No, none of it comes from us. It's okay. He just hasn't watched that stuff, and the fact that he can come up with things that he does without having that background just tells you what kind of mind he has. And I'll leave it at that.
Yes, we will leave it at that. He's a little closer to you. He could still find you.
I know.
He can find me too, but it would just be a little out of his way. But Ben, I appreciate you jumping on, sharing your expertise, and looking forward to being with you next week. I know my kids are fired up. That was one thing that they were very determined to make sure we did.
Yes.
On the drive down here, the weekend we moved here. That was Haley and Daniel's big question. Like, we're going to Maywood, right? Yes. And, I know him, Daniel, and Cypress and Starks have bonded already at camp. And we definitely, you and I want to keep that streak going. And of course, Haley's very excited about Stana and all that good stuff. So
going to be fun times.
Lord willing, we'll see you soon, and we'll talk to everybody a little bit later.
Sounds good. Thanks, bro.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.